First story, by Sarah Johnson. It was supposed to be a relaxing escape from the hustle and bustle of New York City. 4 of us, Sarah, Jake, Lisa, and Mike, decided to rent a cabin in the Catskill Mountains for a weekend in late October. The place we found on Airbnb looked perfect, nestled deep in the woods, far away from any neighbors, and with a picturesque view of a serene lake. As we arrived on a Friday afternoon, we marveled at the cabin's rustic charm. It was a 2-story wooden structure with a cozy fireplace and a large porch overlooking the lake. The sun was setting, casting long shadows through the dense trees surrounding us. It felt peaceful and secluded. That evening, as we gathered around the fire, everything seemed perfect. We roasted marshmallows and shared stories, but soon enough, the tranquility of the woods started to fade. Faint rustling noises in the bushes and strange snapping sounds made us uneasy. As the night wore on, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Lisa claimed to have seen something moving outside the window, but when we checked, there was nothing there. Mike brushed it off as her imagination playing tricks on her. However, the unease was palpable. Around midnight, we heard a series of loud thumps on the roof. Our hearts raced as we wondered what could be causing such a disturbance. We grabbed flashlights and ventured outside, only to find the cabin's roof covered in claw marks. Panic set in, and we locked all the doors and windows. Throughout the night, the disturbances continued. It sounded like something heavy was circling the cabin. We tried to rationalize it, thinking it might be a bear or some other wild animal, but the claw marks on the roof were unlike any animal we knew. Morning brought a bit of relief as the noises ceased. We decided to investigate the area around the cabin in the daylight. About 100 feet from the cabin, we discovered a makeshift graveyard, hidden beneath a pile of fallen leaves and branches. It sent chills down our spines. The graves were shallow, and some had been hastily dug. We couldn't help but imagine the worst, a deranged killer lurking in the woods. Fear gnawed at us, and we decided to leave immediately, abandoning most of our belongings. As we reached our car and sped away from the cabin, we spotted a man standing at the edge of the forest, watching us with a sinister smile. His eyes bore into us, and we knew we had narrowly escaped a horrifying fate. We never reported what we found to the authorities, fearing that the man would find out. To this day, we can't shake the feeling that something truly malevolent inhabited that remote cabin in the Catskills. Second story, by Daniel Miller. My girlfriend, Emily, and I had always been fascinated by the historic charm of Savannah, Georgia. So, for our anniversary, we decided to book a stay in an old mansion we found on Airbnb. The place looked like it had been transported straight from the pages of a Southern Gothic novel. The mansion, known as the Bellamy House, was grand and imposing. It boasted towering columns, a sweeping veranda, and intricate wrought iron gates. We arrived on a warm summer afternoon and were greeted by our host, Mr. Bellamy, who looked as old as the house itself. As he showed us around, we were mesmerized by the elegant architecture and antique furnishings. The rooms were adorned with faded portraits and old books, creating an atmosphere of a bygone era. Mr. Bellamy assured us that we would be the only guests for the weekend, which added to the romantic allure of the place. The first night went smoothly. We dined on the veranda, sipping wine and enjoying the warm breeze. But as the night wore on, strange things began to happen. Footsteps echoed in the empty hallways, and doors creaked open on their own. Emily and I exchanged nervous glances but dismissed it as the house's age playing tricks on us. the real horror began on the second night. We were awakened by the sound of a mournful wailing that seemed to emanate from deep within the mansion. It was a chilling, guttural sound that sent shivers down our spines. We scrambled out of bed, searching for the source of the noise. The wailing led us to the attic, a place we had avoided until then. As we climbed the creaking staircase, the air grew icy cold, and our breath misted in front of us. The attic door stood ajar, and the eerie sound seemed to be coming from within. Hesitant but determined, we pushed the door open. The attic was a labyrinth of dusty old furniture and cobweb-covered relics. In the dim light, we saw a shadowy figure hunched over in the corner. It was Mr. Bellamy, dressed in tattered clothes and muttering incomprehensibly. We called out to him, but he didn't respond. His eyes were vacant, and his skin had an unnatural pallor. As we approached, he suddenly lunged at us, his nails clawing at our faces. We managed to push him away and ran out of the attic in terror. We fled the mansion, leaving our belongings behind. As we reached the front gate, we looked back to see Mr. Bellamy staring at us from an upstairs window, his face twisted into a grotesque grin. It was a sight that haunted our nightmares for weeks. We reported the incident to the police, who investigated the mansion. They found no sign of Mr. Bellamy, and no explanation for his bizarre behavior. The Bellamy house remains abandoned to this day, a haunting reminder of the horrors we encountered during our ill-fated anniversary getaway. Third story, by Mark Thompson. As an avid traveler, I had always dreamed of spending a winter holiday in the Swiss Alps. So, when I found a charming chalet on Airbnb, I couldn't resist. The listing promised seclusion, breathtaking views, and the ultimate winter wonderland experience. The chalet, nestled high in the mountains, was a picture of alpine beauty. Snow-covered peaks surrounded it, and the nearest town was miles away. It was the perfect escape from the world. The first few days were idyllic. I skied, sipped hot cocoa by the fireplace, and marveled at the pristine beauty of the Alps. But on the fourth night, as I was preparing for bed, I heard a faint tapping on the window. I peered outside, expecting to see snow falling gently, but instead, I saw a shadowy figure standing in the darkness. Panic surged through me as I realized there was someone outside my remote chalet. I quickly locked all the doors and windows, convinced it was just a hiker who had lost their way. But the tapping continued, growing louder and more insistent. I couldn't see the intruder's face, just a dark silhouette against the snowy backdrop. The night turned into a waking nightmare as the stalker's actions escalated. They began leaving disturbing messages etched into the snow outside my window, like, "I'm watching," and "You can't hide." I felt trapped, isolated, and utterly terrified. Desperate for help, I tried calling the local police, but the reception was poor, and they couldn't pinpoint my location. I was on my own, with only a flickering fireplace to keep me company as I listened to the stalker's eerie whispers in the darkness. Days turned into a week, and I felt my sanity slipping away. I had no choice but to venture outside to seek help. The snowstorm had intensified, making the trek to the nearest village treacherous. I wrapped myself in layers of clothing and armed myself with a flashlight. As I trudged through the knee-deep snow, the feeling of being watched never left me. I reached the village and reported the stalker to the police. They organized a search of the area around the chalet but found no trace of the intruder. They urged me to leave the chalet and stay in town, which I gladly did. The nightmare didn't end there, though. The stalker continued to send cryptic messages to my phone and even showed up in the village, always staying just out of reach. I decided to cut my trip short and returned home, haunted by the lingering fear that the stalker might follow me. To this day, I have no idea who the relentless stalker was or why they targeted me. The experience left me scarred, forever wary of remote Airbnb rentals in the wilderness, and I can't help but wonder if there are others out there who have fallen prey to similar horrors while seeking the perfect getaway. Thank you for joining us for the whole video. That video on the screen is one of my favorite. Check it out. If you've enjoyed these horror stories, show your support by hitting the subscribe button. Did this tale send chills down your spine? Let me know in the comments.